Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I appreciate your taking the time to be a part of this meeting. We have important business to address, and I'm just grateful for the commitment you give to this important work. Before we jump into the agenda, I want to do something that I think something for us to be mindful of. I'm sure you all know that on January 25th, one of our own commissioners, Eric Njue, died in a accident. He was riding his bike and had a collision with a vehicle, and he died as a result of that. Certainly, it's a great loss to our commission, and I think we mourn that loss. But I also want to share some things that you may or may not know about Eric that that I think will help us to sort of honor his memories. First of all, just want you to know, Eric was from central Kenya. He studied education, linguistics, and literature as an undergrad at the University of Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, a city that I've had the honor of visiting. He earned first-class honors, similar to what we call summa cum laude honors here in the U.S. And that after graduating with his bachelor's degree, he went on to teach English and literature in his country of Kenya. He then became a Fulbright Scholar, and if you're familiar with that program, it allows for travel opportunities for scholars around the world to continue their education. And Eric came to the University of Oregon as a Fulbright Scholar in 2021, and he completed the program in that year. He then applied for his master's at U of O in education, policy, and leadership. And after earning that degree, he began his doctoral degree in special education. Eric was on track to graduate with his PhD in 2027. And after graduating, it was his goal to return to Kenya and make a real impact on the special education in his home country. So his loss is not just to us, but to that dream of taking all of that back to a country in which he was committed and was preparing himself to serve. And so just in honor of him, I would ask that just let's take a couple moments of sort of quiet reflection on his life and his time with us, and then we'll move on. Thank you. Guthrie, we'll move on to the roll call.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. I will now call roll. Greg Heyman.
Present.
Emily Simnett.
Present.
Demetrius Davis-Boucher.
Present.
Michael Dembro.
Present.
Richard Devlin.
Present.
Helen Edwards.
I'm here.
Arnel Fajardo.
Present.
Evelyn Coker. Evelyn Coker. Devin Lawson.
Present. Sorry, present.
Here.
Oh. Teresa Martinez. Jen Proctor Andrews. Mary Middleton.
Present.
Jennifer Smith. Gail Yamasaki. That is roll, and we have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you so much for Guthrie. I want to do a quick review of the agenda. We have a number of reports. We have a very long consent agenda, and I just want to remind us that The purpose of the consent agenda is for us to be able to move more quickly through items in which our impact is more of an approval of processes already have taken place, and I think we're hoping that we give the greater focus of our time to places in which we have, I guess, a greater impact, greater opportunity for input. So we'll try to move forward with that consent agenda. I just remind you as commissioners that when we get to that, you have a right to ask that any item be pulled from the consent agenda, and then it will be dealt with separately. But just a reminder that our intent here is to try to move quickly through those matters so we can spend more time together in those areas in which we need to have deeper involvement. So the first items are to approve the December and January Higher Education Coordinating meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. And if anyone has any questions or corrections before we vote to approve them? Hearing none, could I entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approve the minutes from December and January, please indicate yes, or you can say yes, or you can raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We have approved the minutes from December and January. Thank you for this. We're going to move quickly into our number of reports and updates from our Executive Director, Ben Cannon. Ben, are you on yet?
Yeah, I am, Mr. Chair. I'm joining by phone, still having computer troubles this morning, and this is the rare occasion where my notes for my report are actually on the computer instead of my notebook, unfortunately. So I'm going to request, if you are open to taking public testimony before my report, hopefully I can get back logged on by the time that finishes.
Yeah, I think that would be just fine, Ben, and we'll bring you back into the agenda when you have that cleared out. So we will then move on to item point 3. I want to call your attention to, I think there were 6 written testimonies that are in your packet, and I want to make sure you've had an opportunity to review those. We also have, I believe, 8 who are in line to provide verbal testimony. And we're going to move into that, or just remind all of us that verbal testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per person, and we'll move through that. I also ask those who are providing verbal testimony to identify the topic which they choose to address in their verbal content, so that we'll have a context for your comments. So thank you. Guthrie, would you move into the verbal testimony?
I will. Thank you, Chair. And I will also just note, if anybody is unable to complete their remarks, you may still submit written testimony to me as an exhibit after the meeting. First up, we have Abby Lee, Oregon Community College Association.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Stimnett, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Abby Lee, and I'm the Executive Director of the Oregon Community College Association. And just really quickly, the topic is just an update of what our community colleges are doing in the next week. Specifically, I wanted to draw your attention today. We have Portland Community College is at the Capitol. We have about 100 people that are at the Capitol along with our university partners. So we have a combined lobby day, which I think is another example of how we work really well with our university partners. And so we're excited about maybe a little more optimistic revenue forecast, and we're going to continue to remind legislators that community colleges work for Oregon. And along that line, next Wednesday, we will have our Career and Technical Education Day at the Capitol. And so we're going to be highlighting some of the great work that we do, that you support in getting our students career skills and technical skills and getting them into jobs. So that's next Wednesday. Next Thursday, I wanted to highlight that we have been invited by the Education Subcommittee of Ways and Means to present President Bolger and President Pokrant following the presentation that was given to HECC. That committee has invited us to present another look at those shared services. So it'll be a similar presentation to what you saw, but we are going to be adding on an update on our BSN consortia and a few other shared services, our institutional research and some of those pieces. So that will be next Thursday at 1 o'clock on February 19th. And so if you'd like to tune into that, we are excited about seeing the university report, as we said, and then continuing to work with our higher education partners on how we can improve efficiency and opportunities around the state. And with that, I would be happy to stand for questions.
Abby, thank you so much for that update. Appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Next up, Kenneth Lawson.
Hello. So Chair Heyman, members of the commission, my name is Kenny Lawson. I serve as the president of Columbia Gorge Community College, and I'm here today to speak in support of the Bachelor of Applied Science and Education and our consortium proposal. Just as Abby was talking about, we are trying to do all we can to work together as community colleges to make sure we're delivering the kind of education that serves our community needs. And so we're proud to be a part of that 5-college consortium. And our proposal itself is born directly from a critical necessity, and that's documented teacher shortages in rural special education and bilingual classrooms. Our local school districts have asked us for this solution because our current systems aren't providing or producing the workforce they need to serve our children. So while the program review process has been extensive, we remain focused on the goal of the Oregon legislature envisioned in 2019, and that's to provide viable pathways for place-bound vulnerable populations to fill essential workforce gaps. So very quickly, there's 3 key reasons that I am eager and I'm before you to hopefully move this proposal forward. The first, as I mentioned, is that there's a significant unmet community need. Our school districts and employers cannot afford another year of vacancies, and every delay in the approval timeline translates to a delay in getting qualified teachers into our classrooms. Second, this is a proven model. The BAS model is already working in other states. It can work in Oregon. These degrees are designed to be practical and effective, focusing specifically on students who tend to be place-bound, and many of whom are already working but need the flexibility to gain the necessary knowledge, skills, and abilities to move forward in their careers. And this degree does that. And finally, our institutions are ready. Our staff have worked diligently for months to meet rigorous requirements of the HECC program review. And we produced comprehensive data and addressed all partner concerns to ensure this program is well justified and in the end sustainable. So my goal today is to urge approval of the BAS in education. We want to ensure that the students currently waiting for advising and the rural schools waiting for teachers can rely on a start date that meets the scale of this educational need. So the BASE Consortium has met the high standards set by this commission. We now ask for your support in finalizing this process so we can begin the work of strengthening Oregon's workforce and supporting our student success. Thanks for your time and your commitment to our communities.
Thanks,
and
President
happy
Lawson.
to answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, President Lawson. Good to hear from you.
Next up, Cynthia Orr. Cynthia Orr.
Morning, I just lost my notes. Chair Hammond, Vice President Smith, I'm sorry, I'm totally slaughtering your names. And members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Cynthia K. Orr, and I'm here on behalf of Treasure Valley Community College in strong support of the Bachelor of Applied Science and Education, the BASE program. I have served education for 35 years, and I've seen firsthand how today's students need flexible, affordable, and local pathways to earn a bachelor's degree. Many are working adults, paraprofessionals, veterans, and career changers, people who cannot relocate and leave their job to attend a 4-year university. In my role supervising student teachers, a majority of the Oregon candidates I work with are already teaching under emergency credentials or juggling second jobs as they complete their student teaching. They are committed and capable, but they need community-based bachelor program to move forward. Oregon faces a significant teacher shortage, especially in special ed and ESL. The BASE program expands the pipeline by serving place-bound rural students, reducing financial barriers, strengthening local partnerships, and helping diversify the educator workforce. It does not compete with universities. It reaches students who would not pursue a traditional or fully online path. Thank you for your time. I'm confident the BASE program will strengthen Oregon's educational workforce, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Bill Newton. Let me just check if I may need to promote. We are a bit early from the published agenda time, so perhaps I'll come back to this one. Angelica Garcia. Jennifer Meckley. Catherine Alexander. Mary Moeller.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, commissioners. For the record, my name is Mary Moeller, and I'm the executive director of the Coalition of Oregon Public Universities. I joined OPU recently, and I'm looking forward to working and partnering with the commission. I wanted to share a few things with you this morning. As you are aware, the Oregon legislature is in session, and higher education has been top of mind with the presentation of your recent report and recommendations on spending and efficiency in Oregon public universities and Representative Marsh's bill, HB 4124, a bill to study the system of higher education in Oregon. I want to really emphasize that we are at the ready to partner and hope for a high level of engagement with the commission, legislators, and HECC staff as we prepare for the passage of HB 4124. We believe our institution's expertise and knowledge is vital when thinking about how to best serve students in Oregon and adapt to the ever-growing challenges that we're all experiencing. I also want to express my gratitude for the co-chairs of the Transfer Council, Provost Chris Long and Vice President David Plotkin. I'm so thankful for their partnership and leadership. The work of the Transfer Council is very important, and they are managing a challenging task to ensure that our students have the best opportunity to seamlessly receive a higher education. I'll end on, just like Abby mentioned, I'll end on how excited I am for University Day at the Capitol. Very excited that PCC will be there as well. We have over 200 students, faculty, staff, and alumni coming from all corners of Oregon to support public universities. We know the legislature is considering cuts to several programs and will be advocating for protecting student aid and our public university-based operational funding. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for the time.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for your update. Guthrie?
Yes. Is Bill Newton, Angelica Garcia, or Jennifer Meckley on? Yes. Catherine Alexander.
Yes, I'm here and prepared to give comments.
Thank you. Please proceed.
And it looks like I'm not able to turn on my camera.
Let me take a look at those settings. You should be fully promoted.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like that's not functioning. So, but as long as you can hear me, I can go ahead and proceed if that's all right.
Yes, please do so.
All right. Good morning, Chair Hammond, Vice Chair Simnett, Executive Director Cannon, and members of the Commission. My name is Catherine Alexander, and I'm the CEO and Director of Programs for Red Alder Group. We're an education service provider based in Salem, and we provide outdoor school for elementary and middle school students in the Willamette Valley and throughout Oregon. I'm here to testify today for two reasons. As you engage in budget development for the 2027-29 biennium, I urge the Higher Education Coordinating Commission to hold outdoor school harmless from funding reductions and include the voter-mandated funding level of 4% of lottery funds adjusted for inflation in the Commission's 2027-29 agency request budget. Why does this matter? Well, this is the second reason I'm here with you today. After attending a recent meeting of the Workforce Readiness Committee and listening as KS Venkatraman shared a presentation on the K-12 education crisis in Oregon, it became apparent that neither the committee or possibly this commission realizes the opportunity that exists to leverage the strengths of Outdoor School to help students get a jump start on acquiring Oregon employability skills in high school and during their post-secondary education. There is significant overlap between the positive academic and socio-emotional outcomes that Outdoor School consistently produces and the OES and career-connected learning identified as a top priority by the WRC in their recently published annual report. An opportunity exists for the HECC and the WRC to help do precisely what Venkatraman and his co-author recommend in, quote, elevating fifth grade science as a statewide metric, aligning curriculum annually to address identified skill gaps, and including human OES skills. This opportunity can be transformed into reality first by recognizing that Outdoor School is already a vehicle for accomplishing these objectives, and second, by fostering a closer partnership with OSU Extension to maximize the potential for expanding, amplifying, and underscoring these objectives. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you so much.
Next, Bill Newton.
Good morning. My name is Bill Newton. I'm the superintendent for Hood River County School District, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. So our school district is struggling to fill classrooms with licensed teachers. Right now, we rely on emergency licensed staff and long-term substitutes, especially in key areas such as special education and bilingual programs. We have talented people in our schools already, employed as bilingual instructional assistants or paraprofessionals in special education. These are passionate and skilled people, but without a local pathway that will struggle to become licensed teachers. And the reality is that in 2022-23, most new teachers in Oregon were trained out of state, and those teachers leave our schools at much higher rates. Teachers we know that are prepared here in Oregon are 14 to 16% more likely to stay in the classroom long term. That's why the Bachelor of Science in Education matters. It allows us to grow our own. We know we've had success with this in the past, and that people who already live here, work here, and want to stay here will continue to support our students. In Hood River County School District, 45% of our students are Hispanic out of 3,700 students. And so we have a significant Hispanic population, and the ability to be able to acquire and have bilingual teachers is really important for our students to be able to see and work with people that look like and speak the same language. And so I am here supporting this program because it means stability for our students and stronger schools for our community and complements the existing more traditional pathways with our university partners. So again, thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Angelica Garcia. Angelica Garcia.
We see but cannot hear you, Angelica.
While troubleshooting that, perhaps Jennifer Meckley is available.
Was that anyone else, Guthrie?
Those were the last two signed up for oral testimony, Chair.
It looks like Angelica's going to try again. No. Well, we can see if we can correct these issues, but I suggest we move back to item 2. And I believe our director, Kenan, has indicated that he's got his computer issues resolved and is back with us. So, Ben, it's yours. Nope, we can't hear you. Well,
Mr. Chair, I blame Vice Chair Simnett for these technical problems based on what she told us earlier.
well, we do.
I'll accept responsibility, but I'm not really sure there's much I can do about it.
Well, I appreciate that recommendation regarding, responsibility. So, and especially since it wasn't done to me. So appreciate that.
I'm.
Counselor-
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I will not have my camera on because I've now transferred back to the phones. It's my, my computer is not working. But I am prepared to deliver my report orally, Mr. Chair, if you are ready for that.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, commissioners. I appreciate the time this morning and your continued service to the HECC and to the state of Oregon. I start out on the somber note, of course, of joining on behalf of HECC staff, joining the commission in honoring the life of Eric and mourning his passing. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your remarks at the outset of the meeting. Much of the report that I would give kind of updates on agency activity will be covered during our item on strategic plan implementation. So this will be brief, but I do want to touch on a couple of items that are not covered there or in our legislative update late in the meeting. The first relates to really the national context in which we find ourselves, and in particular, the sharply increased and aggressive immigration enforcement that the state of Oregon saw, particularly last fall, but has been continued, and then of course we've seen in other parts of the country. And that activity, along with hostile rhetoric, has had a profound impact on communities around the state and has certainly impacted higher education. And we see that playing out in the fear that some immigrants and people of color have expressed about gathering on college campuses. We see that in challenges facing international students related to visas, travel, and their own security concerns. We see that at HECC in the reluctance of students who have non-citizen parents to file a FAFSA due to concerns about how that information may be used. And we see it in other respects as well. I want to acknowledge that last month, the governor issued Executive Order 26-04, which established an interagency council for immigrant and refugee coordination. The HECC, on behalf of the HECC, joined the directors of the Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon Health Authority, Department of Human Services, Oregon Housing and Community Services, ODOT, and other state agencies in serving on that interagency council chaired by the governor, and she convened us in our first meeting yesterday. And the role of that council is to strengthen communication across state agencies and with communities statewide. We will work on aligning and reinforcing existing programs, using current resources, and operating fully within the state's sanctuary promise law to align our response to immigration action and ensure that we are working in coordination to support affected communities.
Did we lose Ben?
Director Cannon.
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know exactly what happened. Hopefully you heard the end of my report on immigration. I was just transitioning to a report on Southern Oregon University, and so I'll begin with that. Commissioners likely saw in the news that last Monday, the Southern Oregon University Board of Trustees received a report from its administration that identified a cash shortfall for the current biennium that they expect to emerge late in the 26-27 academic and fiscal year. That funding shortfall for SOU is serious. It is significant. It is based on work that the institution did following that board meeting and in consultation with the Legislative Fiscal Office, HECC staff, and others. It's estimated that cash shortfall is in the neighborhood of $10 million within this biennium. We are working, I talk about a little bit about the HECC role here. Our values and commitment, and I hope we share this with other state leaders and the state as a whole, is to sustain access to quality higher education in Southern Oregon. So I really want to stipulate just at the outset that that is our North Star, that this is a serious situation, and it is vitally important to sustain access to high quality four-year and graduate education in Southern Oregon. As a result of the news last week and Southern Oregon University's efforts to engage legislators and the governor in identifying solutions to this challenge, we've been working closely with the university, with legislative leaders, and with the governor's staff, helping to clarify the situation, so establish sort of where we are, and some of the reasons for it, and to support the governor and legislature in evaluating options for how to move forward, including potentially appropriating some additional funds this biennium, or other state steps that the state could take to help stabilize Southern Oregon University and move into a future state of continued access to higher education in those communities. Certainly expect this report and the news probably generates other questions, or many questions for commissioners, as it has for legislators and community members, faculty, staff, students. We don't have answers probably to most of them, or maybe any of those questions, but we are working. I'm spending probably the majority of my time over the last week plus on this issue, and I'm happy to respond to what I can in this meeting, and then certainly follow up with commissioners if you have thoughts or additional questions. Finally, I just wanted to note, we talked, I think, back in our November and December meetings about the desire of the commission to strengthen its role in helping set a strategic direction for the commission and for the agency, kind of tackle the most important questions that face higher education. And in doing so, use your time more efficiently and effectively, your meeting time over the course of a year. You see that, of course, reflected in one step that's reflected in today's meeting agenda, which is, as Chair Heyman noted, the broader use of a consent agenda to cover more routine actions on the part of the commission. I owe you as well a calendar that lays out more clearly for the year how we will organize the commission's time, trying to find a balance between our meetings from month to month, ensuring that we're spreading to the greatest extent possible, spreading your substantive work out over the course of the year, and using meeting time effectively to engage commissioners in the ways that we really hope and need you to be engaged, helping us address really the most difficult and important questions facing our work. So that is coming. My apologies that you haven't seen it yet this year. It was my goal to have it to you last month, but as a result of some recent events and some adjustments in our thinking as it relates to that calendar this year, I'm delayed, but you should receive that from me soon. Last point is just to note that as usual, our update on agency spending relative to our budget for the biennium is included within your packet. It covers the period through the first quarter of the biennium, the first 6 months of the biennium through December, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that or defer you to our operations director and budget staff if they're detailed. Thanks very much.
Any questions for Executive Director Cannon? Okay, thank you so much, Ben. We will then move into that consent agenda 404, and there are a number of consented items as our Executive Director Cannon has already noted. Additional category of rules consent is included in this, and again reflecting I think our desire to focus our time on places which we have more significant impact. So is there a request for anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Lawson.
Yes, Commissioner Lawson.
I request that docket item 4.5 be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and a standalone vote.
4.5, Portland Community College entrepreneurship, is that it?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. We'll then got to remind me of the appropriate order here. Do we address the withdrawn item first, or do we move on the consent agenda and then come back to the withdrawn item?
We may move on the consent. Either way, Chair.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to check. Okay. Then we'll move forward with the consent agenda with the withdrawal of 4.5. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you so much. All in favor? Hand,
Aye.
verbal?
Aye.
Aye.
Any non-approval? Any not approving? Okay, we will, the consent agenda is approved. We'll move back to the withdrawn item 4.5, and then Commissioner Lawson, would you address your concern with regards to that item?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be clear that I fully support Oregon's small business community. However, my responsibility as a commissioner is to ensure that every academic program we approve here offers a clear, reliable pathway to economic stability for our students. I am choosing to vote no on docket item 4.5 for 3 reasons related to our statutory criteria on demand and capacity. I think that this proposal it bases its need on a 57% increase in new business applications and the rise of self-employment. And these numbers look good on paper, but they often reflect the growth of the gig economy and precarious non-employer firms rather than sustainable enterprises. I'm specifically concerned that we are formalizing a credential that encourages students to take on debt for high-risk, low-security economic activity, where the median income is often far below a living wage. Unlike docket item 4.3, 4.1, and 4.2, which we just approved, which teach concrete tradable skills, this certificate focuses on generalized entrepreneurial mindsets. And while these are valuable, these are soft skills that are better integrated into existing technical degrees rather than being packaged as a standalone 45 credit certificate. This proposal also admits that labor market data for entrepreneurship is challenging because outcomes vary widely, and I am personally uncomfortable using subsidies and financial aid to steer students into a career path with such a high failure rate. So I think that we should be focusing our limited resources on workforce programs with proven stable wage outcomes like the fire, paramedic, and manufacturing items we just approved. So for these reasons, I believe that this specific credential just really does not meet the high standard for workforce development efficiency that this commission should require, and I urge my colleagues to vote no.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lawson. Any questions for Commissioner Lawson? Then I would entertain a motion regarding docket item 4.5.
So moved.
Is that Commissioner Lawson? Do we have a
that
second?
motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Can
Okay.
we, Mr. Chair, will you clarify the motion on the table?
Thank you. The motion, I believe, was to not approve docket item 4.5. Am I correct, Commissioner Lawson?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. Guthrie, you have a...
Oh, apologies, Mr. Chair. Perhaps a motion to approve?
Well,
Guthrie, the motion.
Or, oh, sorry.
I didn't receive that motion, so. Okay,
The motion
so
is
we
not
have
to
the
approve.
motion and a second. The motion, again, reminder to be to not approve this docket item.
I move to disapprove.
Can I get a clarification on that?
A clarification. I'm sorry. I move to not approve the docket item.
Right, I understood that. Thank you, Commissioner Item. And the second provided was consistent with that understanding. Yes or no? Just trying to confirm that we have a second.
I believe it was Commissioner Coker that seconded, but we'll check for clarification.
I misunderstood the motion. I had understood that the motion was to approve the docket item, and it would be an up or down vote on the approval.
So you're withdrawing that second, Commissioner Coker?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there any other second? Liking
I
a
will second. I will second.
Okay, Commissioner Middleton has seconded. Okay. Then we will take a vote. We can start with a hand vote, and if it's divided, we may go to a identification vote. All in favor of approving the motion not to, I think I'm saying it right, approve the motion not to approve docket item 4.5. Does everybody understand what that is? Okay. Indicate
Yeah.
Yes. All who are voting against the motion, there's triple negatives at this point. I'm sorry, but would you vote against the motion, which is to not approve this? All indicate that by raising your hand or verbal. Could I think we need a individual identification. Guthrie?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Beginning with the vote in favor of not approving.
Thank you.
Greg Heyman, how do you vote?
I vote no.
Emily Simnett, how do you vote?
No.
Demetrius Davis Boucher, how do you vote?
Yes.
Richard Devlin, how do you vote?
No.
Helen Edwards, how do you vote?
No.
Arnel Fajardo, how do you vote?
I'm abstaining because I don't understand this situation right now. I haven't seen this play out in the commission during my term where we get this level of activism and advocacy from a commissioner on a consent item. So I'm choosing to abstain on this one.
Evelyn Coker, how do you vote?
No.
Devin Lawson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mary Middleton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair, that brings us to 3 votes in favor of not approving.
The 3, I don't think you called my name.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah.
Michael Dembro.
I vote no.
Thank you. The total is 3 votes against, 3 votes yes, and 6 votes against. 1 abstaining, 4 absent.
And what does that mean?
Motion fails.
The motion fails. There is not a quorum in favor.
Could I then entertain a different motion? Commissioner Devereaux?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I vote to support in favor of the proposal to approve this program.
So, motion
Second.
to approve.
Second.
Okay, and we have a second. Let's now take that vote, and the vote we are now taking is to approve docket item 4.5. Let's just move to a roll call vote.
Thank you. Preparing for the roll call. Greg Heyman,
Yes.
how do you vote?
Yes.
Emily Simnett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Demetrius Davis Boucher, how do you vote?
I'll abstain this time.
Michael Dembro, how do you vote?
Aye.
Richard Devlin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Helen Edwards, how do you vote?
Yes.
Arnel Fajardo, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Evelyn Coker, how do you vote?
Aye.
Devin Lawson, how do you vote?
No.
Mary Middleton, how do you vote?
No.
Okay, that concludes our voice vote of those present. And that brings us to 6 in favor, 2 against, 2 abstained, which is a majority of the quorum present, Chair.
Guthrie, and Mr. Chair, can we put the meeting on recess just for a moment? If the commission will stand at ease. Guthrie, we need to connect for a minute just to ensure that we're clear about the requirements for successful passage of a motion. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would I be allowed to say something while we're in recess? It looks like you're muted.
I said I'd prefer to wait until everyone rejoins us. Thank you.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just confirming, we will need a majority of the appointed commissioners. And so with 6 in favor, the motion does not pass.
Thank you. That was, appreciate your taking the time to clarify that. That was my understanding as well, but I'm glad you took the time to do that. So this motion does not pass, and so docket item 4.5 is not approved. I think that is the end of item 4. We will move on to item 5, which is notifications. This is a notification, so it's not an action item. Klamath Community College has provided notification of their application for a business management and salon emphasis. It's a bachelor's of applied science. And you have a copy of that notification in your packet. And if you have questions, but it's really just an early step in the process of approving that program. And that makes us aware and the public aware of their interest in pursuing that. So any questions on that? Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 6.0. Executive Director Cannon, it's back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So this is my opportunity to update you and engage you in the agency's implementation of the strategic plan that you adopted, a little over a year ago. And the report in your packet includes a summary and the docket item of the process and where we stand in that, and then a rather lengthy, I think 16-page chart document full of tables that provides a snapshot of where we are in and actions we've taken and some of what we've learned and challenges we face in acting on those, implementing those items. So there's a lot of material here, and I will attempt to cover just some highlights and then ask for your feedback or questions. I want to start just with a moment on process. Since you sort of dip in and out of this, I will remind you where things stand broadly. As I noted, the HECC adopted the strategic plan in late 2024, so a little over a year ago. And over the course of calendar year 2025, agency leadership assigned HECC staff and small groups of HECC staff to 13 separate strategic plan implementation teams. Each team was assigned one of the 18 items that are noted in the right-hand column on the back page of your strategic plan, the strategies that the Commission identified a little over a year ago. And each team worked in that small group over the course of several months to develop proposals for actions that the agency could undertake, propose, or modify in order to get working on implementing those strategies. Those teams made presentations to the executive team, to executive leadership of the agency, and agency leadership activated or is in the process of activating action that the teams recommended, or in some cases modified those recommendations and set things in motion. The first 8 of those teams met in the first part of 2025, and I've described previously the action that we are undertaking in response to those recommendations. The additional 5 that makes up the total of 13, reflecting teams that we set in motion to plan for work on strategies 3, 7, 8, 9, and 13. They met over the course of the fall and presented recommendations last month in January to the agency leadership. And we have not yet determined, and you'll see reflected in this report, the fact that we are still considering at the agency leadership level exactly what to undertake, what to change, what to start. And so part of what I hope can occur today is you may have thoughts to inform me and our leadership team on the work that we do in connection with those newer items that have been highlighted in the packet, those strategies that we've more recently embarked on, 3, 7, 8, 9, and 13. So I'll focus my report on those strategies, those 5, although I'll likely highlight a few others that you've heard previously about, but we've made significant progress on or perhaps hit stumbling blocks on. So I'll draw your attention to a few others, but primarily I'm going to focus on the newer strategies, or the newer recommendations coming from newer strategy implementation teams that we're still considering sort of how to take the work. So I'm turning now to that longer document, the 16 page one, and this is organized in order, strategy by strategy. You'll recall these strategies are grouped into 5 goals, the first of which is relevance, and then the third strategy that is included under that is to contribute to solving community problems. And the Commission's strategic plan identifies your intent that we increase the proportion of post-secondary learners who work to solve public problems and can collaborate across different perspectives and experiences. So our strategy implementation team came up with a couple of priority recommendations that they believed would address or are in line with this strategy. The first of which is described under proposed action item 3.1 to establish or create a statewide civic engagement hub and training initiative that would create a centralized online resource platform with practical, accessible civic training, ensuring that learners can easily find, understand, and take part in civic and community problem-solving activities. The second of which would establish or create a series of civic engagement training modules that we would sort of develop and host, or work in partnership with others to develop and host, that would support learners in participating meaningfully in public life, including potentially in participating with the HECC Commission or other boards and commissions that we support and work with. So these proposals, both of which are likely resource intensive, but feel valuable and potentially quite could contribute to meeting the goals of this strategy, are under consideration by agency leadership, and sort of looking for some way to activate at least some version of this, or at least considering that. And again, welcome your feedback on any of this. I'll continue with the other four new strategies. I am, of course, happy to pause at any time. It's a little challenging for me because I am still working off of my phone to see hands or comments, etc. But feel free to interrupt me, Mr. Chair, if somebody would like to jump in. I'm turning next to strategy 7, which is titled Strengthen Post-Secondary to Employment Transitions. You've asked us to identify, encourage, and incentivize programs that support education to career transitions. The strategy implementation team here recommends expanding state funding support for the integrated education and training model that community colleges offer to support adult learners, including those who have not completed high school, through CTE pathways that are closely linked to specific occupation and careers, in conjunction with adult basic education support and often other wraparound services, including, in some cases, English as a second language support or other needs that adult learners may have. This is a model that many community colleges operate, but with sort of limited funding, there are limits on the number of learners who they are able to reach. We see pretty high success rates for it, and so the proposal is to dedicate additional state funding to that model. Their second recommendation relates to supporting learners in accessing college and career center or using college career center resources to learn about and access the public workforce system. And so the modest proposal here is that we work with the WTDB to create a best practices guide on how to better connect college and career centers with the public workforce system. And the third is that we explore the creation of a fund to provide grants to learners or to reimburse employers for unpaid internships. So recognizing the value that internships have in supporting students to connect with career, but also recognizing that many of those are unpaid and therefore inaccessible to many Oregon students. The proposal here is to put some state funding behind an internship model. Turning to strategy 8, which is related to your goal of affordable access to post-secondary education. This is a big one. This strategy is titled simply Grow State Investment in Learners and Institutions. So it's a recognition on the part of the Commission in your strategic plan that more public resource is likely necessary in order to improve affordability and access to higher education in Oregon. And this team considered a number of ideas and did so partly in the context of the limited resources and challenges that the state budget faces that we'll discuss more as we turn to the legislative report and our work on POPs and LCs later in this meeting. But I'll go slightly out of order here in 8.2. In strategy 8, and I'll actually go backwards and start with 8.4. The the team here does recommend that the commission advocate for increasing state funding for financial aid. Under 8.3, it recommends that the commission advocate for at least the level of state funding that would be required to maintain current services at community colleges and public universities. And in 8.2 and 8.1, it has a couple of maybe more unusual or newer approaches or recommendations for agency leadership to consider, including a proposal that under 8.2 that we concentrate state financial aid resources on the Oregon Opportunity Grant in order to help expand its reach to more students. As the commission knows, the HECC, as a result of legislative decisions, operates a number of state financial aid programs. They have overlapping and different purposes. And this recommendation coming from the team suggests really focusing, perhaps streamlining the number of state financial aid programs that we administer and concentrating those resources on the Oregon Opportunity Grant. Under 8.1, the team has recommended establishing a statutory set-aside, I guess asking the legislature, in this case, to establish a statutory set-aside from the state financial aid appropriations to support emergency aid to students. So you could imagine, for example, dedicating, let's say, 1% of the Oregon Opportunity Grant budget to emergency aid grants, likely administered by colleges and universities themselves, but under appropriations or grants that they receive from the HECC from the state. The notion here being that emergency aid is critical in some cases to retaining students. The Opportunity Grant and other state financial aid, of course, is critical for expanding access and supporting retention, but we do see a need. We have identified a need for more in the way of emergency aid support to deal with the unexpected and often life-altering, even if not particularly costly, events that may occur in a student's life and may jeopardize their ability to continue in school. Turning to strategy number 9, also under our goal of affordable access. Here, the focus is really on helping learners meet their basic needs. Of course, the emergency aid grant is, I think, could have been categorized here as well. But the two recommendations you see under 8.1 and 8.2 are focused on basic needs that many students face. 8.1 recommends sustaining and expanding the benefits navigator system at public institutions that the legislature and the HECC have established and funded over the last couple of biennia, but which are stretched. These navigators, which connect students with public benefits, including housing, food assistance, other supports that students may be eligible for. Those navigators are limited, of course, in their reach and in their number, and this proposal is to sustain and expand and better support the network of public benefits navigators across our public institutions. The second item, 8.2, under this strategy is that and these should be labeled, I apologize here, these should be 9.1 and 9.2, that's a mistake in my docket item. The second, and I am on page 9 of the document. 9.2 recommends increasing funding for the OSAC Student Child Care Grant. This is a grant program we administer. It's distinct and separate from the Oregon Opportunity Grant, the Oregon Promise, the Oregon Tribal Student Grant, and others. It would increase funding for this student child care grant to meet the level required to meet or exceed current demand. And this is a grant that is typically oversubscribed. It does have a meaningful impact. It's can result in roughly $10,000 per student to help offset childcare costs for student parents, but it is very limited in the number of students who it serves. Finally, the last of the new items that I'll mention before touching on a couple of other updates is Strategy 13, and it fits under our goal 4 of belonging, increasing belonging. And the recommendation from the implementation team here for strategy 13, and I'm on page 12, is that the HECC should lead development of a statewide belonging through pathways hub, which would include a digital platform centralizing college and career pathway information and allowing learners to explore options and next steps, and complemented by a sort of human infrastructure, people who help connect learners to knowledgeable advisors, counselors, and community connectors. So this is both a digital and a analog or real life platform that would support learners in accessing college and career pathways. While this, like the others, is noted in your docket, like the other new items, or most of them as being items that agency leadership decisions are pending, I have to sort of acknowledge, perhaps by way of transition to, you know, the next steps and thinking through some of the other actions here, just how limited we are in our ability to take on and potentially even to propose major new investments or initiatives that would require investment. And I think certainly the sort of aspiration of 13.1, which is, I think, reflected in the aspiration of some of the others that I've described as well, may outreach or outstretch what we think we can take on or should attempt to take on in a time of real, you know, resource scarcity for higher education and for the HECC. So it's sort of a note of caution about all of these. They're exciting, but they are also would be and you know, reflect the kind of vision and aspiration that we assigned and expected of our teams, of our staff teams, and we are continually confronted with the challenge of capacity and the requirement that we sustain much of our existing work required under law and budget. Before stopping, I will just ask that we turn to the end of the packet. There are a few items starting on page 15 that you've received some briefing on previously, but I just want to highlight again item 0.1. These are not associated with any single goal within the Commission's strategic plan, which is why they're included here at the end, and you know, they're 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. The first is that we develop and advance new state statutory goals for post-secondary education and training. I've talked to you about this in previous meetings. Just want to note that the steering committee that we created for this and that I'm leading and facilitating, including legislators, community leaders, college university presidents, and representatives of employers and others, has met a couple of times and is, I think, well on its way to suggesting a new approach to, or an updated approach to, the state statutory goals. So I think you can expect a kind of fuller report on that likely at your March meeting, as by which point we will have met. We will have met again. I should say your April meeting, by which point we will have met again. The 0.2. Another important project this year that is well underway is to determine which short-term credential programs qualify for the new federal workforce Pell Grant. That's a state responsibility assigned to the State Workforce Board and the governor. So we're working closely with that board, as you've been briefed on it previously. Again, there's information in the packet, but I want to acknowledge that we're well under the process of identifying which programs will likely be qualified for that new financial aid opportunity for students getting workforce training starting in the fall. And then finally, 0.3, potential realignment of the HECC's agency structure. We're working, as of this week, with our executive team to look at some potential realignment of how the agency is structured and staffed to better support our goals of and the Commission's goals of supporting students and learners in higher education and workforce training. So much to come on each of those, but I didn't want them to get lost in this very long document, given their significance for the Commission and for the agency potentially in the years to come. There's a lot more here. There are considerable updates on items that I haven't covered, so I welcome questions and comments, but definitely didn't want to take up any more of your time with this presentation, so focused really just on the new pieces. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll pause.
Thank you so much, Ben. We have a number of commissioners that want to provide comment or questions. I'll start with Commissioner Dembro.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Ben. I have a couple of quick questions. One, with respect to the emergency financial aid, this is something that a number of states have been doing, creating funds for this purpose. We have heard, as I think you mentioned, that a number of institutions are already doing this to some extent, having emergency resources available for students. Do we have has a survey of the institutions been done, where we could have a compilation of just what is happening now at the different institutions, just what, size of the funds, what's going on, if we're going to consider creating a statewide fund, how that might interface with these local funds. So that's my first question. I'll go, and if you can hold, I'll just go ahead and ask my second one, which is sort of a pathways kind of, or focusing on the interface from high school to college. The legislature created a high school graduation requirement for a future learning course for students that they would need to take to graduate. Has the HECC been engaged with that at all in, helping to develop the resources that students would be accessing in taking that requirement? So take them in either order.
Thank you. I'll take them in reverse order. Great questions, Commissioner Dembro. So yes, we have been working with ODE in the development of that newly required course for high school students. And actually, I'm pleased that one update that I didn't receive in time to include in this packet is that ODE is strongly considering including a FAFSA completion expectation as one of the standards for that course, that high school course that you mentioned, Commissioner Demmer. And that's partly the result of our work with ODE on that course. I'll check with staff and see what additional updates we may have about that course and our work with ODE. But I did just this week learn about that that expectation that FAFSA completion will be among the kind of elements, standards that ODE develops for that course. And your first question about emergency aid is a really good one. And I don't think we have an inventory today of the emergency aid amounts or practices that colleges and universities administer and use today. And you're right that it is a part of the kind of suite of tools that colleges and universities, many of them at least, are using to support students. And I think it would behoove us to have a clear understanding of kind of those levels and approaches by school than we do. So make a note of that and follow up there. The thinking or the idea behind this proposal is that we wouldn't be creating a separate and parallel system of emergency aid. We would be contributing state resources to sort of supplement what those colleges and universities are doing already through their foundations or through whatever approaches they've developed locally, organically to create emergency aid funds for students. But yes, I think that'd be a good thing for us to know.
Thank you. Commissioner Coker.
Yeah, thank you so much for this report. I wanted to revisit strategy 9, which I'm very happy to see included in here and added as one of the things that we are have been focusing on since the last time we visited this report. I would love to also see if there's an action item that we can consider putting in there through whatever mechanism possible about addressing student housing. I know that housing insecurity is a major issue for student basic needs, and that recent articles that have come out in OPB and recent studies done at Portland State have shown that in the Portland area, at least over half of students are struggling with housing insecurity, with both community college students and university students struggling with this, with about 1 in 5 students struggling with out-and-out homelessness. So considering the governor's priority of expediting housing construction in the state, I think that this is a great area that we can really do more in, and that we can kind of strike while the iron is hot to address the dual issue of housing production in the state of Oregon and student housing insecurity. I would be really interested to see if there would be a policy that we could work with legislators to put forth in the 2027 long legislative session that would be akin to California's SB 79 or the provincial laws in Vancouver, British Columbia, to automatically upzone areas near transit stations or near university campuses, especially in the areas that have higher levels of housing insecurity or higher levels of cost of living, especially in towns like Portland, Ashland, Corvallis, Eugene, that see outsized differences in their housing costs compared to the state average.
Thank you. Commissioner Simnett.
Thank you, Chair Heyman, and thank you, Ben, for your comprehensive description of the work that staff has been doing on the strategic plan. I had a couple of questions about strategy 3 and one about strategy 7. So strategy 3, I think I have my numbers right. The civic engagement contributing to solving community problems. First of all, I'm very grateful to see that there are a couple of proposed initiatives. I do understand that there are funding constraints with that. So I was wondering just a couple, if this idea of promoting civic engagement and learning about civic engagement has come, if it has come up or could come up at the Transfer Council in the discussion about general education. And my second question about this strategy is related to, I'm just wondering if there was a plan or had been any efforts to talk with students who about barriers that they perceive in engaging in civic action while they're a student at a community college or in higher education. So those are my two questions for civic engagement. And then I guess I have a question about a different strategy, but maybe I'll ask those.
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. I'll be very brief. So I'll have to check in terms of whether or how we have heard from or talked to students about this. So I'll follow up on that. In terms of gen ed, yes, I appreciate that you called out the fact that one opportunity we see for moving this civic engagement strategy forward is through the general education work of the Transfer Council. And so that is, it's not reflected on this document, but is in our work plan.
Great. That I appreciate that. I would also anticipate that faculty at the various institutions would have quite a lot to offer in thinking about how to support increasing students' understanding of civic engagement to solve community problems. And then my question about strategy 7, I'm just making sure, the supporting employment transitions. Again, really delighted to see the proposal to create a learner experience fund and to support students doing internships. I know this is a big barrier for many students who I work with. But I am wondering if there had been any discussion yet about, given that even in the best of scenarios, there would be limited funding for that, how that funding would be prioritized.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think we're at that level of detail. I don't think the implementation team, at least in terms of what they presented to agency leadership, got to that. But you're right, that would be an important consideration pretty quickly if something like this were to be established and funded. funded. So definitely making a note of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ben, I thank you so much for your report, and commissioners for your questions that I think will help direct this work as moving forward. I think we'll move on to the next item then, which is 7.1.
Good morning, Chair Heyman. Are you ready for me?
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Heyman, Co-Chair Simnett, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Amy Cox, and I am the Director of the Office of Research and Data at the HECC. What you have in front of you is an action item. It is an annual evaluation reported to the legislature on the Oregon Opportunity Grant. Excuse me. I do have some slides just to help focus you on the high-level findings of the report, so I will share them. I guess I will say before I move on past this first title slide that although my name is here, I am actually representing the hard work of many, many people, not only those in the Office of Student Access and Completion who administer the grant, who work all year long on that, but also for this report, primarily members of the Office of Research and Data who go to some pretty extraordinary lengths to pull data from lots of different places for this report. Let's see, there we go. For those of you who may have less experience with the OOG, I want to explain a little bit what it is. It is Oregon's largest financial aid program. It serves usually between 35,000 and 40,000 students every year. These are Oregon students from low-income backgrounds. That is the eligibility requirement. Oregon students from low-income backgrounds who attend college or university in Oregon. So it is not students from other states are not eligible, and students from Oregon who go to other states are not eligible, but those who are from Oregon and go to college or university here and come from a low income background, I'll get into what that means in just a moment, are the recipients of this grant. It has been around for a long time. It has undergone different policy changes over the years, but it has consistently been a support to tens of thousands of students in Oregon. Students are automatically assessed for the grant. They're automatically evaluated for the grant if they complete a FAFSA, the federal financial aid application, or an ORSA, the Oregon State application for aid. As long as they complete those, they're automatically considered for the grant. And the grant is awarded to students who meet a certain income threshold. That income threshold is determined in that application in the FAFSA or ORSA. It's not the income level that you see on your taxes. It takes other factors into account. And I'll get into that in just a second also. But all of those students are from low income backgrounds. In the last few years, there have been a number of changes to the grant after the legislature has expanded funding for the program. So many of you recall that work over several years and the significant expansion to the OOG's budget that has occurred. The result of those expansions over the last few years has been that it has been able to serve students from a broader range of income backgrounds. They're all low income, but not quite as low as they had been earlier. So the lowest income students and the low income students is how I would characterize it. In addition, it has also enabled the program to increase the size of the grant. In particular, and I put here on this slide, the size of the grant for the two most recent years that we have complete data. This report covers the year 2023-24. And in 2023-24, The program changed from being the size of the grant being determined by a percentage of cost of attendance to being determined as 75% of tuition at a public college or university. So in other words, students attending an Oregon Community College or an Oregon Public University would be awarded a grant size if they go full-time and they are eligible for the grant of, excuse me, up to $3,900 if they go full-time at a community college and $7,524 at a bachelor's degree granting institution, whether it's public or private, and both of those numbers covering 75% of the cost of tuition. The report that we look at this year asks 3 general questions, as we have in previous years. Who is served by the grant? How does the grant affect the affordability challenges that students are facing? And of course, that's what it's aimed to do. And we look at the impact of that. And then as required in the statute, what is the academic success and performance of students who receive the grant? Here on the right, we note that we pay particular attention to these changes that have occurred in the last few years. Each of the last 3 years that we have data for have had some new changes every year. So what we've done is look at them sort of as a whole, as well as this most recent year where the grant size rose, particularly at for students attending bachelor's degree institutions, and also for this higher income threshold. As I said, we don't use income in and of itself. We use something called the expected family contribution, which is a measure of economic need that is based on family income as well as other factors. I guess the last thing I would say about that is that the changes that have occurred in the last few years have meant, I said that the program is covering more students or students from a broader range of income backgrounds. It is now able to cover students whose expected family contribution is actually higher than the federal Pell Grant. So it includes all students who would receive a Pell Grant, as well as some students who have family backgrounds that are just a little bit higher, family income backgrounds are just a little bit higher as well. So this first question, who is served by the Opportunity Grant? There are a few things that come up for this. One of the things is certainly just the number of students who are served. And as you see here in 23-24, nearly 40,000 students served by the Opportunity Grant. That is a lot of students. And combined with the fact that enrollment at colleges and institutions is still recovering from the pandemic, that means that among the students who filed for financial aid, 43% received an OOG. And about a quarter of all Oregon students at the community colleges and public universities are receiving an OOG. So that's a pretty extraordinary breadth and reach of the program. I do want to note for those of you who are particularly attuned to types of students at the community colleges, what we mean here is 4-credit students. So 27% of 4-credit students at the community colleges and admitted students at the public universities. So we're not talking about high school students here. Compared to higher income students, in other words, those who do not qualify for the OOG, and to students overall, including the ones who didn't even apply for financial aid, we see that OOG students are more often students of color, more often from rural areas, and more often older. And this is really important for a few reasons. One of them is because under the higher income threshold or EFC threshold, with this expanded eligibility, we wanted to see, is the program still disproportionately serving underserved communities? And the answer to that is yes. It is also important because Oregon has, as you know, from our adult attainment conversations, a projected need for more workers with post-secondary credentials than we are graduating in this state. And so if we're going to meet that, state labor need, we're going to have to engage students from communities who are underrepresented in college and university. And the OOG is a key driver of that. So then this question of how does it affect college and university affordability? Well, certainly we know it's going to help college and university affordability. If you get a financial aid grant, you're better off, right? But how much? The first thing before I answer that question that I need you to know is that students from low income backgrounds have a much harder time, even with financial aid, covering the cost of attendance than students from higher income backgrounds. So what that means is even when we take into account the expected family contribution, if families can cover that, and students' earnings, and institutional aid, and public grant aid, it is still true that over half of OOG recipients, in other words, over half of low-income students, cannot cover the cost of attendance with all of that. But if we didn't have an OOG program, that number would be 69%. So this is a big, it contributes a lot to the gap. The gap is still there and much higher for low-income students than for middle and upper income students, but the gap would be even greater without the OOG. We did see this gap between what would the affordability rate be with the OOG or if it didn't exist. We did look at that in earlier years as well. And because of the increase in the size of the grant in this year, the improvement is actually greater. The impact, the financial impact, not surprisingly, but we see it very much play out in the actual numbers. In previous years, instead of this being like a 16 percentage point improvement, it was more like 10. I think it was 9. I also want to note some sector differences here. Because in 23-24, the size of the grant was restructured to cover 75% of the cost of tuition, and there was a bigger jump that needed to be made at the university level to meet that. The university, it also applies to the private institutions, but the bachelor's degree granting institutions students at those institutions received a much higher grant, larger grant than they had in earlier years. And so we saw the affordability improve, really, especially for those bachelor's degree institution students. We didn't see the same improvement in affordability among community college students. Their grant size also rose, but not in the same way. And then the statutory question, what is the academic success and performance of students with the OOG? Those of you who have been around for a few years and heard me report on this in past years will know that we see high academic success compared to other students of OOG, of students who receive the OOG, and that has continued into this year with the expanded grant size and with the higher EFC threshold. Students at the community colleges who get the OOG do better than their higher income peers and better than students overall. That is across different measures of academic success. We have also seen it in other years and other reports, as well as students at bachelor's degree institutions who get the OOG have almost the exact same levels of academic and success and performance. I want to note that nearly the same level of academic success and performance is despite the fact that there is well-documented evidence and research demonstrating the stronger headwinds that students from low-income backgrounds are facing, and coupled with the stronger headwinds that many students from low-income backgrounds are facing because they're also a member of another underrepresented group, like a first-generation student. We also looked at this question of, has academic success and performance changed with these policy and program changes? It's a little early to draw definitive conclusions there. We only have a single year for each of these policy changes. So we'll keep needing to keep watching this over the upcoming years as we can start to track students into graduation rates. But the early indication that we have this year is that we see low-income students showing higher retention in the 23-24 year than we saw in earlier years. So that says to us that the larger grant size in particular is having an impact on retention. And of course, students can't graduate. They can't get the earnings boost that comes with that credential. And they can't, from the state's perspective, help fill that labor need for post-secondary workers unless they have that higher retention to begin with, right? They're not going to get to the finish line if they don't get to year 2. So, or even semester 2 or quarter 2. So those are good indicators. So if we put it all together, this is, again, a very high-level summary, but the students who receive the OOG are those who continue to come from the greatest financial need. They are often coming from other communities that are underrepresented in post-secondary. The expansion that we've seen has really helped affordability, particularly for those students at the universities. And the OOG students are doing academically as well, if not better, than their higher income peers, and better, or as well, if not better, than students overall. We are cautiously optimistic to see the higher retention rates of the larger grant size that we'll continue to track. Anything that we can do to help support these students who are really attending school often against all odds is, I would say, well-deserved. And we therefore conclude the report, as we have in earlier years, with a strong recommendation to continue to the legislature to continue support of the OOG program. And with that, I will ask if there are questions.
Thank you so much, Amy. Yes, are there questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Devlin.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate the report. I just was wondering, the standard of providing 75% maximum for students in public universities. Our data that you're showing us is on 23-24. Are we still doing that in the current academic year?
That is correct. Yes, Commissioner Devlin, Chair Heyman, Commissioner Devlin. Yes, we are. And I know that these data are sometimes a little frustratingly old. We all want to know how students are doing right now. There is, as I said, a lot of data that come in for this report from multiple different places. And the sort of soonest we can get it to you is of this time. Yes, the 75% of tuition is still the definition today. If there are other sort of deeper implementation questions around that, I would have to invite my colleague, Carrie Thomas, who's the director of OSAC, to weigh in.
Mr. Chairman, a follow-up question. This may be a deeper question.
Okay.
For students that, let's say, are at institutions, for instance, the University of Oregon, that has the guaranteed tuition level, which actually means each year freshman tuition can be significantly higher than it is for someone that's in their third or fourth year at the University of Oregon. Tuition fees for this year were not fees, just tuition. Well, I have the tuition and fees figure here, but I believe Obviously, the tuition figure for the University of Oregon and OSU, and actually for Southern Oregon, are considerably higher than the other institutions. So is this an average of 75% for all university students, or is it geared towards each individual student and their individual circumstances?
Commissioner Devlin, that is a very good question. And I think I know the answer, but I don't want to speak out of turn. That is something I would need to invite Carrie Thomas. Thank you, Carrie, for coming on camera, who's ready for those kinds of program definition and implementation questions.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, Commissioner Devlin. For the record, my name is Carrie Thomas, and I am the Director of the Office of Student Access and Completion at this time. I can certainly follow up related to this question and send some information through Ben out to the Commission related to how we review for specific circumstances, but we do explore the average cost of tuition. We're not able to adjust for each institutional cost.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that would be a lower percentage for the higher.
For the
tuition.
higher cost institutions,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Middleton.
This may, thank you, Chair Harriman, and thank you for this report, Dr. Cox. This question may tag on to what Commissioner Devlin just was asking. I'm particularly concerned about the disparity in affordability between university students and community college students as a community college representative, especially since community colleges are generally more affordable than universities. So have you looked at ways to improve that disparity and make this a little more even-handed?
Chair Heyman, Commissioner Middleton, that is a very good question. We have, and I think it's actually more a Carrie question than it is an Amy question. Yeah, I'm going to kick it to Carrie.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. As you will see, there are legislative changes that we are actually currently implementing for the OOG to break down cost of attendance by the credit amount as well, which will hopefully help to address some of that disparity. And we'll have to follow up with some specifics in the details because it does get very complicated by institution type. For the privates, the publics, et cetera. So we can certainly follow up with some more detailed information. Additionally, if there are more specific questions, you could send them through Ben and I can have my team address them specifically to get answers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Heyman, Commissioner Middleton, I will note there is a difference here between what OSAC has to engage in to plan and implement the grant, where they're looking ahead and they're saying, okay, here's the average across institutions, here's the amount, we're going to prorate it this amount if you go half-time, that kind of thing, where they're projecting. In the Office of Research and Data, we have, while there's significant data work involved, we have an easier time in the sense that we don't have to try and predict the future and project and account for those kinds of differences. So what I am saying is that when you see the affordability rates in the report, those things are prorated by the number of credits the institution that the student goes to. Those are calculated on a student level. That is different than what has to happen in implementing the program going forward. So just a little context there, because I don't want you to go back and look at the report and read something carefully and say, wait a minute, this says it was calculated at a student level. And Carrie said it wasn't. That's different. She's looking forward and we're looking backward.
Thank you. Commissioner Gembrough.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report, Amy, and your input, Carrie. I think we're all a bit frustrated by how Oregon's contribution Two, operations at our colleges and universities lag behind the national average and our regional neighbors. But we should feel good about the commitment that this group, the HECC and the legislature, has had towards financial aid in recent years, where we really are much ahead, as I understand it, of the national average and our regional neighbors, particularly for need-based aid. So I just want to point out, how that is a silver lining. And I think it's a commitment that needs to remain. I'm wondering about the sort of interaction between the Opportunity Grant and the Oregon Promise, right? Because the Oregon Promise is a last dollar program. So low-income students are going to be more likely to benefit from the OOG than they are the Oregon Promise, right? And the Oregon Promise tends to go more towards students from middle class, upper middle class, and more affluent families. And I'm just wondering how, if at all, that factors into your calculations of the impact of the OOG and student success rates, if that's something that you also look at.
Chair Heyman, Commissioner Dumbro, we do take that into account. When we look at the affordability, we take into account all of the state's different financial aid programs into that pot of available resources that a student received. So not to get too detailed, but what happens is the team takes, obviously computer-wise, not looking at student by student, but takes every single student and adds up whether they got an Oregon Promise grant, and if so, how much, whether they got an Opportunity Grant, and if so, how much, whether they got a Teacher Scholars Program grant, and if so, how much, whether they got a child care grant, and if so, how much, and then bumps that pot and what their individual expected family contribution was from the FAFSA. Also adds in an estimate of student earnings. And then that's the same for all students. And then takes that group of resources and then says, okay, this student went to this institution. That institution published, whatever as its expected total cost of attendance, including tuition, housing, books, the whole shebang. That student went full-time, so we'll use the whole cost of attendance. Oh, that student went part-time one quarter. Okay, so then we adjust the cost of attendance to that amount, and then says, okay, how do those resources compare to that cost of attendance? And what we see is that, and we also take into account the institutional aid at the universities, which is significant. The universities provide significant institutional aid for each student, well, for many of their students, I should say. And what we find then is that, okay, well, here, these students were able to cover that expected cost of attendance, and these students were not. And what's the gap here? And what we see, we want it to be zero, right? We want that affordability rate metric to be that no student in Oregon could cover the cost of attendance at the institution they choose to go to with those resources. And what we find is that, and there could be problems with those resources. That's a whole policy discussion. Is the expected family contribution reasonable? Is the Opportunity Grant large enough? We could have all of that discussion, but with what we have today, what we see is that assuming students can cover that expected family contribution and they have whatever bucket of aid they have, what we find is that even with all of that, the students from the low income backgrounds are still pretty much as likely to be able to cover the cost as not cover the cost. So that is a long answer to your question of, do we take the promise into account when we're looking at this? Absolutely.
Thank you.
I know, I wish I could tell you it was better. But it would be horrible without the opportunity grant. I can say that. And I will reinforce what you said. Yes, Oregon is higher than the national average of state need-based financial aid.
Amy, I have one question for you, or perhaps an observation. You just touched on it. The difference in unmet need between low-income and medium-income students would indicate to me that our Oregon Opportunity Grant is not structured to adequately respond to need on the basis of student income. And I know this has been a controversial issue, but do we ever think about restructuring the awarding calculation in order to equalize that unmet need between those different income groups?
That is a question for Carrie. We do not weigh in the report because we haven't calculated the data to bolster it, but we have considered doing it actually this year. We have a number of things to tackle, but this issue of students at slightly different income levels. So, which is what you raise.
So I understand that it wouldn't show up in the report because it's a report of outcome, but the outcome does indicate that low-income students end up with a larger unmet need. And to me, at least, that's disconcerting.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Devlin.
I think it would be good, because I kind of always comment on this, that there are a group of students that actually may have family income that puts them in lower middle class, probably working families, where their total income is too high for them to receive an Oregon Opportunity Grant and too high for them to receive a Pell Grant. But they still do not have the capability to attend a post-secondary institution because they're not eligible for a lot of the aid packages we have. And just borrowing is not even adequate to meet those needs. I do think that there is a group of students that we kind of forget about that I think are choosing not to go on to post-secondary education simply because their families do not have the capabilities to do it. And I did have a more technical question. I'm starting to confuse these items, and I tried to look for a clarification. Do we still use expected family contribution? And then
sure.
the FAFSA uses the new, I forget what the term
student
for that
aid
is.
index.
Okay. Can you comment at all about how those are interacting?
Yes, I can. Chair Heyman, Commissioner Devlin, thank you for this question, because it is actually forefront in our minds, but I feared confusing the issue further by bringing it up. So thank you for bringing it up. The academic year 23-24 was the last year of the expected family contribution. In the next time you see us report on affordability, or on a new year, I should say, of the affordability rate, that's what I'll say. When we report on a new year of the affordability rate, it will include the student aid index. We are in the process right now in our office of wrestling with the translation between the two. There will undoubtedly be a break in the trend where we have to do some explaining and put some qualifications on it, because the student aid index, the current approach, is defined a little differently. It also has a very different range of numbers. Now, for the rate that we put together, which is a rate of students, a percentage of students, in some ways, whether they call it from 1 to 10 or from 5 to 10,000, it doesn't matter, because we're still, the end result is a percentage of students, but it will make the overtime trend challenged. So we will need to come back to you for the results of that. We're in the process of looking at it right now.
Mr. Coker.
Yeah, thanks so much for this report. It is heartening to hear that we are above the national average for need-based aid, but it is disconcerting to see the percent of community college students, at the very least, facing unaffordable costs rising over the last 3 years, and that will potentially cause issues for Oregon's workforce development going forward, as we are seeing fewer people come into Oregon from internal migration to fit our labor needs. So while it is heartening to see the trend line for university students going down, trend line for university students facing unaffordable costs going down, it is concerning to see the trend line going up for community college students. And I do want to emphasize again, not for Amy Cox or Executive Director Cannon, but just for the record that the only reason that we are an above average state for funding need-based aid is because we have seen a dearth in funding for post-secondary education as a whole, and we have seen the need to make up for it by funding need-based aid instead of funding our actual institutions.
Okay. Not having more comments, this is an action item. Could we entertain a motion?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner
I'll
Zelma.
second.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye or hand raise.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the action item is approved. We are now going to move into our item, which is a break. So 10 minutes from now, we will come out of break and back into session. So let's say that's about, 11:07? Okay, we're break. Guthrie, are we ready to reconvene?
We should be. Let me just confirm a quorum has returned. If commissioners could turn their cameras on once they've returned, that would be very helpful.
Got it.
And it appears we have a quorum to reconvene, Chair.
Thank you so much, Guthrie. We'll reconvene after our break, and we'll be moving on to item 8.8, or item 8, which is strategic funding. And I think I'm turning it over to Kyle Thomas.
Commissioner Hayman, I have item 10.0, the legislative report, and item 8.1, agency budget development. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, this is it says 2729 agency budget requests and LC development feedback. How's that?
That sounds like me.
Good.
Good morning, commissioners. Kyle Thomas, Director of Legislative and Policy Affairs for HECC. I will start with the sort of more standard legislative report. Then I will transition into agency budget and legislative concept development for the 27-29 biennium. I'll be joined then by Tom Real, the Director of Operations. So starting with what's happening this session, and particularly starting with the revenue forecast. So every quarter, the state is issued a new economic and revenue forecast. This February, the forecast on which the will be conducted by the legislature. State revenue this time around is uniformly positive, with the books having now fully closed on the prior biennium. The state's beginning fund balance, which is cash left over from the prior biennium, increased about $142 million, which boosts total available revenue to spend in the current biennium. And current resources for the current biennium are projected at about $253 million, with an ending fund balance of about $198 million. Lottery revenue also, which has an effect on a subset of HECC programs, including the Oregon Opportunity Grant, increased about $34 million. So that's really great news. But in the long term, state budget writers believe that the next couple of budget cycles will remain exceedingly tight, with highly limited capacity for new investment. And in the short term, there are some serious unresolved questions related to a couple of things. First is the 2025 special session transportation investment package that was referred to the ballot, as well as the fate of legislation in the current session that disconnects some state tax policy from federal tax policy. As federal legislation has drastically altered some tax policy, the state's practice of automatically passing those changes through to the state tax code has resulted in revenue decreases. And the legislature is asking right now whether some of those federal changes should be actually continued in Oregon. And that's about a $300 million question that's on the table right now. So we're more optimistic than we have been at any point in the last several months that any cuts that would befall the agency or its partners in the current session would be particularly modest. But we do also at the same time have to recognize that the next several years are
Kyle, I don't know if you can hear us, but you've cut out. You're frozen.
Am I moving?
No, now we hear you.
Okay. My conclusion to that section is that we're optimistic now that any state cuts we would receive in the current session would be relatively modest. But over the next several years, we continue to think those years will be relatively challenging. I'm turning now to the 2026 legislative session from sort of a bills perspective. This is the 35-day legislative session that convened February 2nd, runs no later to March 8th. I'm being told my audio is still maybe cutting in and out, so I'm going to kill my video for a second here so I can ensure that you hear the audio. We're tracking a number of bills related to this session. Only a small fraction of the number of bills introduced. There's only a small fraction of bills introduced this session relative to the long session. There's about 300 bills that have been introduced this session. For comparison, we get closer to 2,500, 2,800 bills that come out during a long session. So we really are only tracking a handful. The first work session deadline for committees is early next week. So already we're in a period where the number of bills that will be under consideration is about to be dramatically reduced. But I'll review a few that we are tracking. These are in bill number order, not importance order. So we're taking a look at Senate Bill 1512. That is a bill that's sponsored primarily by Oregon Workforce Partners, the local workforce boards, that modifies certain aspects of the Prosperity 10,000 Workforce Development Program. This is a bill that's really designed around an ongoing ask for continuing funding for that program. There is no ask in the bill, but the bill itself, I think, is primarily a lobby vehicle to ask legislators to provide new resources into that program. We're looking at that bill in particularly because one adjustment is the removal of language about the program's focus on serving priority populations. This program was one of a number of programs established under the umbrella of Future Ready Oregon, for which service to priority populations, which includes racial and ethnic minorities, speakers of other languages, rural Oregonians, veterans, and other groups, was a key tenet of Future Ready Oregon. And so I think we're asking ourselves whether or not we want to provide some comment around the development of priority populations under Future Ready Oregon in relation to this bill. We're also looking at House Bill 4033. This is what I would call a housekeeping item. We currently manage a volunteer database that is run by the folks who run the Oregon Serves program here in the agency. That is primarily intended to capture volunteers who are willing to serve in statewide emergencies. We don't have any current funding to operate that program, and there is a bill that would transfer that program over to the Department of Emergency Management, who would be more naturally the agency needing to call on the services of volunteers that are registered in that database. We expect that bill will pass out of committee in just a couple of hours. We're looking at House Bill 4079. This bill requires public education institutions to adopt policies for notifying students in the broader campus community when federal immigration enforcement activity takes place on campus. There have been a couple different versions of this bill. Prior versions have had HECC in the driver's seat in terms of developing regulations or policies for campuses to follow. Subsequent amendments have taken HECC out of that bill, recognizing that we ourselves don't necessarily house that particular type of expertise when it comes to policies around really what is primarily a campus security, I think, issues. Nonetheless, we're monitoring the ongoing progress of that bill. We have House Bill 4112. This is a bill that would increase the lottery funds allocation for the outdoor school program by $6 million. The outdoor school program budget is housed within the HECC budget because it is a program that is overseen and administered by Oregon State University. So we don't have any position on this bill or on the policy or whether outdoor school should get more money, but we are watching it because it does directly impact our budget. House Bill 4122, this bill expands and codifies the rights of public university student governments in Oregon. Particularly, it gives them more prerogative over the management of student incidental fees. It also gives them more prerogative to determine the eligibility of their own members to be in office and to serve as members of student government. This was introduced in response to some student government issues we heard about that were occurring on the campus of Oregon State University. Right now, that bill has not been scheduled, and I think we believe it will not be receive any action for the rest of this particular session. Just two more. We have House Bill 4124. This bill is probably the bill we're monitoring most closely. This is the bill sponsored by Representative Pam Marsh that really primarily takes the work of the University Spending Efficiency Report and the recommendations, particularly the first recommendation of that report, and asks HECC to do more work to build that recommendation out. That did pass out of the House Education Committee yesterday, and it's on its way to the Ways and Means Committee. And then lastly, we're looking at House Bill 4134. This is a bill that increases the state's lodging tax. We're watching this bill because an amendment has been filed, which would take 0.1% of the overall lodging tax and dedicate it to the Oregon Conservation Corps. In the last budget, the Oregon Conservation Corps had approximately $10 million. However, funding for that program has always been one-time funding. So there has been a need to sort of continually revisit this program each biennium. Putting this program into the list of programs and services funded by the lodging tax would sort of take that issue off the table. It would be a continuous funding mechanism, although it would be at a level lower than that $10 million we were anticipating based on work of the Legislative Revenue Office, that the 0.1% of the lodging tax is about $7 million in the next biennium, and obviously that would be projected to increase over time. I'll stop there with the current year legislative update before we transition, see if there's any questions.
Do you have any questions for Kyle? Okay. Kyle, you can proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Turning now to docket item 8.1, and I hope Tom is on screen and available now. So we have begun the process of collecting legislative concepts, which I'll refer to as LCs, to as POPs from here on out, for the next biennium in the 2027 long legislative session. So where we are right now is that staff have produced some initial proposals. Proposals at this stage do not have to be fully formed ideas. For legislative concepts, we focus on identifying the policy problem and developing an understanding of the range of potential solutions. For POPs, a reasonable understanding of potential costs and impact, but there's much more work to be done in order to refine and socialize these concepts before we would bring them to you and the governor's office for final consideration. This process is directly tied to instructions that are issued every 2 years by the Department of Administrative Services and the governor's office. And so I think it's important, especially since we have a good number of new commissioners since the last time we developed LCs and POPs, just to talk about those instructions for a moment. Historically, those are they're highly variable. Under prior governors, our ability to produce an agency recommended budget has really been unbounded by any fiscal realities or governor priorities. So the commission has in the past produced agency recommended budgets that, in the view of the commission, really met the moment. These budgets propose significant increases in financial aid and institutional funding, really necessary to greatly reduce affordability challenges and increase completion. In other years, we have been directed to undergo specific vetting processes with entities external to HECC, like the Racial Justice Council, to ensure that our budget proposals reflected the promotion of equitable opportunity for underrepresented populations. More recently, we have been directed to form agency request budgets that were capped at levels slightly above current service level and prioritized in a manner reflective of restrictive fiscal environments and the priorities of the governor. So these instructions are really important. They change with administrations and fiscal times, and it's they that provide the boundaries for the rest of the exercise that we'll conduct. And I'm going to toss it to Tom for just a moment, and I think he has a slide to put on the screen to talk a little bit about the instructions we've gotten for this version of the exercise.
Good morning, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, Commissioners. Tom Reel, Director of Operations at HECC. I'm going to attempt to share a slide and speak briefly about the recent policy option package, or POP instructions. As Kyle mentioned, POPs shall be revenue neutral and exceptions may be requested for capital projects, ongoing IT projects, and legislatively directed requests. It is expected that HECC will bring requesting exceptions for the capital projects at the institutions and for our ongoing IT modernization project. The POPs that we have gathered to date were drafted prior to these instructions and are not revenue neutral at this point. We will now be reassessing them with these instructions in mind and bring them to you as we can. Thank you, Commissioners.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So that is a really important set of considerations that we have to keep in mind moving forward. The sort of second thing that we're looking at with regard to POP and LC budget development is really part due to the conversation you have had this morning about strategic plan implementation. And it is likely that as decisions are made regarding which initiatives to move forward, we will be adding to the list of POPs and LCs under consideration strategies and policies that are necessary to implement elements of the strategic plan that are endorsed by the Commission and the executive team. So I'll give you a high-level overview of some items that we're thinking about in terms of POPs and LCs. That list does not include items that you heard today relative to your strategic plan that would require legislative intervention to achieve. But you can expect probably at the next meeting we discuss these issues that we will have some of those items added to the list. And then the third consideration is that later this month, the executive team is going to convene to conduct initial screening of POPs and LCs. As Tom sort of alluded to, that's the time where we're going to evaluate POPs and LCs relative to the governor's budget instructions, how they align with the agency mission, vision, plans and goals, scale and feasibility, and priority. It's really likely that several items will inevitably be removed from consideration. And then after that happens, and with clearance from the governor's office, the remaining items, plus the items that we add, will move forward to refinement and partner engagement. The full list of active concepts will be available to share with the Commission at that time and in much greater detail than we are really prepared to discuss today. So given the instructions, this round of POPs will focus on agency technical adjustments and position shifts that are typical of any cycle, potentially also the continuation of one-time projects that are already underway that sort of need additional funds to make it to completion. Staff have additionally proposed programmatic expansions intended to meet demand for services in financial aid and workforce. And the Commission may also engage in the process of examining the budget needs of community colleges and public universities, which would result potentially in additional requests. But the legislative concept side is really expected to follow suit, with many modifications being proposed that would alter current programs and initiatives in ways that do not propose expending significant resources. So staff have generated a number of LCs and POPs, as I've said. I'll point out that of the ideas that staff submitted that likely could move forward as is under the governor's instructions, even though it does have a significant cost, that is the next phase of HECC's agency modernization project. Other ideas that staff have submitted include, as is typically the Commission's leading POP priority, an expansion of the Oregon Opportunity Grant. There are also POPs supporting other important bodies of work and creating new bodies of work, including proposals that create more affordability for student parents, improve our pre-college outreach and mentorship programs, provide dedicated workforce and post-secondary support for tribes, expand youth workforce engagement, and seek to bring adults who have some college but no credential back into higher education opportunities. In terms of ledge concepts, staff have submitted ideas that would improve and streamline all of our higher education reporting, based on conversations we're about to begin having with institutions that would make modifications and improvements to the process of developing transfer pathways, to adjusting our sexual misconduct survey process and campus requirements for dealing with campus issues of sexual misconduct. And obviously, you just heard about a number of strategic planning initiatives. So sort of with apologies that we are not able to go into detail today, owing to the instructions that we just received, we do believe we will be in a position to give you a much more significant list and expansion and detail in April, once we implement the instructions we've received and that initial staff consideration occurs. I will stop there and see if there are questions.
Yes, Commissioner Devlin.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to put one thing on the record. This is the early part of this discussion. Many members of the commission were not members of the commission back in August of 2024, when we were asked to forward as an agency recommendation the DAS CSL budget plus a limitation of 1% more. Many of us were reluctant to vote for that at that time, and we only voted for it because we were able to obtain what we felt was a quid pro quo from DAS and the chief financial officer, that there would be an opportunity to review the CSL process prior to this next budget cycle. That opportunity has not occurred because DAS and the CFO have declined to participate in that discussion. We don't know at this point, I think, what the CSL instructions are going to be. Staff may know better than the commission knows at this point. But we still may have significant issues with the CSL, although they may not be as significant as they were last time because of some other issues that are intervening. I think we have to continue that pressure to re-examine how the current service level is determined, or otherwise we are not going to really get clear picture of what the actual costs are that the universities and community colleges are experiencing. So I just wanted to put that on the record. We had what many of us believed was a quid pro quo, that we would vote for this budget that we felt significantly underfunded universities and community colleges, under the understanding that we would have this opportunity to review CSL. And thus far, DAS and the CFO have declined having that discussion. And to be quite honest, in the timing of the budget cycle, it's too late probably to have that discussion now. So we will be dealing with whatever CSL is developed between the CFO and LFO for community colleges and universities. But I just wanted to put that on the record because I do think that's going to be a significant discussion when we actually get to this coming August, when we are going to again have to forward a budget with an agency recommendation on what the budget level will be.
Thank you, Commissioner Devlin, for continuing with making sure we remain mindful of this issue. So appreciate that. Commissioner Dembro.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. First, I want to again repeat my support for the comments that Commissioner Devlin just made. I think it really is important. The governor's instructions are directing us to be essentially revenue neutral in what we put forth. And so the expectation is that any additions or new programs, new requirements would be paid for by subtractions within our current programs, that we would have to pay for them. And I'm just wondering how that side of things will get done. Seeing if there are aspects of our current programs that might be eliminated, being replaced by other priorities. What is the process for that discussion?
I'm certainly not equipped to respond to that question at this point, so I'm wondering if anybody else is.
I think Ben just took himself off mute and then quickly put himself back on mute because you heard that feedback.
Right. I'm gonna try. These devices are causing me all kinds of trouble, as you can tell this morning. Hopefully you can hear me. Commissioner Demmer. Okay, yes, great. Yes. So I think that's a really appropriate question, Commissioner, given the instructions we received on Tuesday and have reported to you this afternoon or this morning. And I can only say at this point that the expectation or the requirement that any POPs be offset, any proposals for new spending be offset by reductions to spending will further require our staff and ultimately me and our agency leadership to look very hard at places where we may want to prioritize. As I'm sure all commissioners can understand, it's really difficult to identify the items that we're doing today, that we're funding today, that that may be less important or that we can conclude are less important than things we want to start. But that is, I think that's what we're being asked to do. And given the urgent need for increased support for certain kinds of activities, I think we will work with our team to develop options for reducing support for other activities. I will say that the challenge in this, you understand this, Commissioner, but when the overwhelming majority of the HECC budget comes in the form of pass-through payments to colleges, universities, and students via grant aid, we don't have a lot of options, right? We can increase the opportunity grant, but probably at the expense of funding college or university budgets, or vice versa, right? And that being said, while those categories represent the overwhelming majority of our budget, there are other things, including support for agency staff and some targeted grant programs we administer for specific purposes, whether it's benefits navigators or support for part-time faculty or other activities that I can assure you we're gonna have to look really hard at in order to try to be responsive to the Commission's, I think, longstanding priority of focusing on student access, affordability, and the quality of programming at colleges and universities.
Thanks, Ben, for that response. It's helpful. Other questions? Okay. Kyle, Tom, thank you so much for your report. Sounds like we're going to get a whole lot deeper into this in meetings to come. So I appreciate the introduction that we had today. We'll move on to item 9, which is strategic activity pathways. And this is an action item coming out of the transfer console. Leah is going to do that. I want to note that I am the I'm the representative of the Commission Board of Commissioners to the transfer console. So I'm quite aware of the background associated with this. And while Lee would do a great job explaining the details of that, I just want to at least initially state how important it is that we move forward with this. So Lee, go for it.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Lee Graziano, the Director of Transfer Initiatives. Just to set the stage quickly, each year the Council commits to developing a set of common course numbering plans, and this cycle they completed the vast majority of that work. The only items still unresolved are 3 communication courses where faculty couldn't reach consensus on credit alignment, and neither could the Transfer Council. That's the narrow issue bringing this item to you today. I want to be clear up front about what this item is not. It is not about a lack of effort or commitment. It is simply a case where the good faith work of faculty and the Council didn't lead to consensus. As you saw in the docket, the only unresolved issue in the remaining CNAPs is the credit number. faculty presented strong arguments for a 3-credit and a 4-credit pathway, and the council explored them thoroughly. After multiple meetings and votes, the council remained evenly split. The administrative rule before you exists precisely for rare moments like this. The technical language in the docket item and the rule makes action sound harsh, but it's not a judgment on the council's performance. It's a structural safeguard to ensure the work continues when consensus isn't possible within the required timeline. Today, there are 2 pathways before the commission. You can acknowledge the council's overall progress and roll these 3 CNAPs into this year's work plan that extends the deadline for completion through December 31st, 2026, or you can activate the fail-safe mechanism and shift responsibility for completing these CNAPs to the executive director for a defined 90-day period. Those details are outlined in your docket item in terms of what those precise steps would look like. Importantly, both options result in the same implementation timeline for institutions. These courses will not be adopted until 2027. Staff are recommending the commission take the fail-safe option, which is a declaration of lack of timely progress. The faculty work is complete and institutions are eager to adopt these courses. The only barrier right now is that the council has been unable to reach consensus. Using the fail-safe mechanism allows these CNAPs to move forward promptly and honors the intent of the rule. We also believe it will ultimately help the council because it requires us to gather broader input from institutional leaders. When the completed CNAPs return to the council in May, we're confident that the new information will aid the council in quickly acting to adopt these courses. So again, I want to stress this is not about fault or failure at all. It's about ensuring continuity and keeping the broader CCN work on track. So I'll pause here and invite discussion or questions, as I know this is the first time this particular rule is coming before the commission.
Lee, can I add a comment? Just, I think you certainly touched on this, but the transfer council itself admitted that they were unlikely to resolve this issue themselves. They took numerous votes, and they really came to the position that says it didn't look like any of the voting members were likely to change their vote, and we were just stuck at that point. And so it wasn't like if we just give them more time, everything will work out. It was a sense that this is where we're at. And I think that's a fair representation of what where the transfer council ended up. And so, which is why I personally think this is an appropriate next step in moving Common Course numbering forward. So, other questions or comments? Then, Commissioner Devlin, Dembro, sorry. Starts with a D, you know.
I'm the younger one.
That is true. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to share with the colleagues that the legislature gave the HECC this authority deliberately in case situations like this came up. And I'm impressed that it has taken so long for this situation to come up. I'm sure this is a very serious situation, and it's important for us to be able to move forward. So I would support this move.
Thank you, Commissioner Dembro. Any other comments or questions? Then I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thanks. And a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is approved. we move forward with this effort to align credits for these courses. Thank you so much, Lee, for your report and for your work with the Transfer Council. We move on to, Guthrie, remind me, do we still have a legislative report from Kyle, or did we already take care of that?
That was concluded along with his other item.
Thank you. Then that means that we are moving, I believe, on to item 11. Is that correct? Which is an item which we call for the good of the order. Just a reminder, this is an opportunity not to take on significant additional issues, but to if there are comments or perhaps just things that might help us do our work in the future, this is an opportunity to offer those. So Commissioner Coker, I believe you have something.
Yeah, I have two quick comments. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Lawson for his action to pull out the motion from the consent agenda. I think we all benefit from a higher standard of scrutiny when that's merited and when a member of this board has concerns. I think that I would have liked more time to review the different points made for that motion. And the different documents made for that motion, but doubtless we will, since that motion, the approval for that motion did end up failing, we will almost certainly see that before us again. So I'm thankful for the due diligence brought forward. And the second thing I would like to mention is that I would love to connect with you, Chair Heyman, as well as with Director Cannon about the possibility of putting together a POP for 2027 relating to housing production. As well as another one, if possible, if a fiscal is not attached, if HECC staff has the capacity to study housing insecurity and homelessness rates among post-secondary education students in the state.
Thank you, Commissioner Coker. That's noted. Other for the good of the order. Yes, Commissioner Davis-Boucher.
Hi, thank you, Chairman Heyman. I just would like to quickly just say thank you to Director Cannon. Just thank you for acknowledging SOU's current condition. I did just want to express that I did go to a recent town hall at SOU, kind of explaining the work that we're doing and trying to get as much funding and taking care of our universities as much as possible together. And as well as I want to inform that that there are petitions probably going around from university to university to advocate for to get us up to the national average. And so I just want to put that out there and put that on the record. That's in development.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis-Boucher. Any others?
I'm seeing a hand from Commissioner Lawson, Greg, or Chair Heyman.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sumnett and Mr. Chair. I just had a question actually for Director Cannon, and I was wondering if now would be an appropriate time. I was hoping to get to that before the good of the order, but I wasn't able to jump in quick enough.
Well, I think for the good of the order, there's certainly an opportunity for you to ask or present a question. I don't think we will get into a conversation during this meeting as a result.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a clarifying question for Director Cannon, specifically about the budget development process and the LC presentation we just received. So I was looking over the document and it mentions that staff are developing programmatic expansions to meet demand. I was just wondering if the current budget development process would allow for the commission to see a gap analysis model, specifically to inform the commission on what I mean by that is if we would have an opportunity in August to see what the cost would be to fully fund the Oregon Opportunity Grant for our lowest income students. I guess I just asked because looking at the data from, I believe it was document 7.1 regarding the affordability gap, I think it would be really helpful for the commission to see that full need number to inform our decision making, even if we ultimately have to submit a constrained budget.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. It is noted. So I appreciate that. Anything else? Thanks to all of you for your participation today. I think we got some good work done. We will move forward, and our meeting is adjourned.